right, my name is Wale Kundayo. I came from a polygamous family of about 10 children. My mom was the fourth wife, and for some reason, we started going to church long ago, where my mom realized that we needed God. So our background essentially is from CAC. I'm an indigene of Osun State, Elisha to be precise. I started Covenant Nation when I was in Yaba College of Technology. There were quite a number of people who were in school then who would normally come, and then so we're invited, and that's how I started. I met my wife at the Covenant Nation. I was in choir when I joined. When I joined Covenant, which is Covenant Christian Center at the time, I met my wife in the choir as well. I also was in Snapshots. I was, let me use the word, founding member of Snapshots at the time. I also did protocol at the Covenant Nation. What else didn't I do? I did crowd control at some point. Literally, I went through the departments. The only one I probably didn't do at the time was camera and ushering at the time, right? Covenant Nation has been a tremendous blessing to my life.
It's interesting how we came about moving to Iganmu. So what had happened was the church was located then at Yaba, and I think we did have a second center there, Lagoon. And Yaba had gotten so congested that I heard that people were driving round to find where to park. In some cases, someone was there for 45 minutes because the first service would go out and then second service, and they were looking for space. I used to have regular meetings with leaders in the church, maybe once every fortnight.
And pastor said, we need to get a place.
And one of the ministers, Mrs. Ifoma Abajwe, just said, wait a minute, there's a facility that the husband of her classmate used to have. It was a telephone company, all right, and then they had that, and that it had closed down, and that the place seemed unused. So she said, all right, she'll call them, and she picked up the phone and called her friend. And then they called back and said, they are sorry, the facility is not available. I said, all right, we'll look out for something else. And then before the meeting ended, within 15 minutes, they called back again and said, well, it might be open, all right, for some lease, a short period. And then we got to meet the real owner of the facility, and the rest, they say, is history.
At one time I was in my office, and then pastor called and then says, okay, so we are going into branches. You'll be heading the Covenant Nation Iganmu, and this will be your assistant. All right, bye-bye.
So we came in, and we were really thrilled. It seemed like a very big place. And we said we'll have no need for car park space in this place again. All our problems have been solved. The facility looked huge. There were 3 warehouses. We broke down the walls. We felt thrilled by it, and we started church.
So one of the landmark moments was when we got here. The first day we got here, it was looking like a pitch, like a football pitch. It was so massive. I was like, how do we get to that end? It was like we just kept walking, and all of a sudden the place looks small, and it has gone through renovations, I think about twice, which is expansion, and it still looks small again. So I think one of the landmarks was, coming from Yaba Church, which is almost like I'm sorry to Yaba Church, but I'm sorry, but it looks like a room, right? But Yaba Church has also expanded, beyond that. I mean, it houses about 1,000 people.
So we decided to expand it, and we almost doubled it in size to what it is today. And the interesting thing is that we had to get it ready for Wafbeck then, and we finished literally the construction the morning before Wafbeck started. I mean, everything was in place, but the finishing, the cleaning up, and all of that. So we're just on time for it.
How many of you know you're in Covenant Christian Center? Okay, all right. If you're here for the first time, we'd like to welcome you in the name of the Lord. Please turn to your neighbor and say you're welcome to church this morning.
I think we started then with just one service. It used to be just one service. Then it grew to 2 services. Then we now have 3 services. There's also service on Saturday. So there are basically 4 services every weekend. And it's been amazing. Then we didn't have midweek service. We always had to go to Yaba for midweek service when it all started. But later we've been having midweek service here in Iganmu, and midweek service itself is a massive, massive service to attend.
How I joined church. Very interesting story. It's 10 years now, actually. So a Sunday before we moved to Iganmu, I had just moved to Lagos and I was attending another church. And at some point it was difficult keeping up the schedules and all. And I was just asking myself, okay, what church can I go to? What church can I remember? And then I remembered sometime way back, I had seen an advert about church where they were doing chapters. I think we're doing the book of Galatians or Ephesians, and then I had seen platform. So I'm like, oh, Covenant. And then I went online quickly and I checked, and this was like 9-ish. And I saw there was still one service left at the Yaba Center. So I got ready and I went to church. That was my first Sunday at Yaba. And it was interesting. And then Pastor announced that the next Sunday we're opening Iganmu Center by 4 p.m. And that's how I moved to Iganmu Center. And I've been in Iganmu Center all along.
We've been in TCN for 7 years now. We joined TCN together. We joined about 6 months after we got married. We really wanted to be in God's will, and we started our family on what does God want us to do in every area of our life. So I was from a different church, he was in a different church. When we got married, we moved to his church, and then we began, growing and asking God, is this where you want us to be? And we had a place that we thought was the next move for us to go church-wise. But God was telling us Covenant, and it was clear, it was really clear. In fact, we took a 3-week.
It was a redirection.
We weren't going to church at all. We were staying home and we were praying and seeking God's face because we really wanted to do God's will. We wanted to do it right.
Yeah, so that 3 weeks was the best 3 weeks of our lives since we got married, because that was when God actually instructed us clearly to come to Covenant Nation. I was supposed to be a minister where I left. Yeah. In fact, I was supposed to be a parish pastor where I left. I don't want to mention the name of the church. But that was what actually really made us have that 3-week retreat to decide and prayerfully make a decision as regards where to fellowship. So when God told us to come under Pastor Poju, forget being a pastor in church or being a minister, just come, sit down and listen. That was the instruction, and we've been listening for 7 years now. And
since we joined Covenant, it's been evidence that we're where God wants us to be. Spooky things have happened. There are times we would discuss, things that we like pertaining to life and practical things, just random things, and we'll come to church on Sunday and Pastor would say those things, explain them better, or shed more light, or give us a different perspective that just, makes things clearer. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. We're sure we're where God wants us to be. 100%.
We joined Covenant Nations in the year 2017. We came and we discovered that this church is a faith-living church. And since we joined it, our life has been transformed for better. We joined the church because we have 2 of our children who are here, Edmond Didokoko and his wife. So we joined the church through them. And from there, I think 2 of our children, through their family, they've joined the church. There's something special about this church.
Right.
Okay, so I've been in TCN Iganmu for since when I was, I think, 6-year-old, if not even more, because I can't remember right now. And it was because of my mom. And she just stumbled on this church coincidentally, it was really coincidental. And then she came here, and I'm here. And it has been amazing. Growth from when I was 6-year-old to when I was 10 till now. It has been really, really amazing. I know where I was before and where I am now. It's not the same at all.
Yeah, I believe COVID has turned out to be a massive blessing for the Covenant Nation. That was the year that birthed the opening of many campuses. I think during that time that we were at home and church was still holding. we moved online, and Pastor Poju was always having one thing or the other to teach us and to preach online. Immediately the regulations were relaxed and physical gatherings became lawful. The physical churches were opened again, and then we're glad to come back to church. But now it's under strict regulations. We had to check people's temperature at the entrance. We had to make sure people sanitize their hands. We had to make sure that seats are far apart. In fact, I remember there was a Wolfbeck that we had during that period too. Our ushers had to be going around intermittently to tell people, put on your mask. So during that time also, baby dedication was not, there were no laying of hands. So the pastor just blesses the children from the pulpit, and then the parents will be the ones to lay their hands. And so they weren't handshakes, you know, things like, oh, greet the neighbor next to you. It was elbow to elbow. I remember then we used elbows, and then we used fist bumps, and there was less contact, which is not so usual with Christian fellowship, where you want to greet and hug and everything. So during that time, we were ushering, and then we were also policing to an extent, because I remember the government sending in some form of compliance officers to ensure that congregants are not flouting COVID rules, and ushers had to also do that. So it was a lot of balancing, you know, you love them, you also ensure they comply with rules.
Let me just say something about leadership. In leadership, run an organization, it can be very lonely. Let me tell you why. You will have to take executive decisions, and executive decisions, because you are the leader now. What that means is that you are seeing things others are not seeing. A leader sees something happen, and he looks at the unintended consequence of it. That this thing, if you leave it alone, is going to spread into this particular thing.
For me, there was a day I was in church and pastor was preaching. And as you know, as everybody knows, the thing about pastor's sermons are that they are very practical and insightful. So one day, when pastor finished preaching, I went back home and just tweaked my CV. And the thing I highlighted in that CV was adaptability, because that was what I learned from the sermon when he was preaching and saying you have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible, you know, in life and in whatever it is you are doing. So I think that for me was very significant. And the other thing is this, pastor, or put it this way, I learned how to save for my house rent from a sermon that pastor preached.
We joined Covenant Nation. I was 2 months pregnant with our first son, Petra, and it was a wonderful time. I mean, church was very accepting of me. I could go pee in the nursing mother section because I was always peeing after some time.
It's been a faith journey, honestly. This guy, there was a serious prophecy. The pastor was teaching around prophecy around that time when this guy was actually pregnant. I mean, we were pregnant with this guy, rather. And I remember one Saturday, we were just praying, and the Lord said, tarry for that. It was just natural Saturday morning when you wake up. Just do normal prayer, like 30 minutes and move on. And then 30 minutes, no, God is saying, move on, move on. And then we kept praying for like 2 hours. And a word came that there was actually a plan to eliminate this guy. I mean, like it was going to be a stillbirth and all that. And we actually literally did not believe it because it sounded very strange. But because we know how God speaks to us, we actually took the word for it. And at delivery, it was very clear. The summary is, the gynae who did the surgery was telling us that if he had been pushed through the birth canal, that he would have actually come out as stillbirth, because there were so many marks on his face that actually looked at the pelvic bone was already pressing on his face. He was not going to make it. But because that word had come, we had prepared, God had actually really helped us. And like Pastor said, when God speaks a word, you also have to act and all that. And it has really, really been helpful for us. So thank God for him.
So my first contact with the Covenant Nation, which used to be the Covenant Christian Center, was 2010 or 2011, when a friend of mine told me about the church, and I attended the Word Feast. It was midweek then. I came for the Word Feast, and I listened to Pastor Poju. Honestly, I didn't understand what he was saying. But there's always something you take away and go and be thinking about, and then a lot of things that he said during the sermon will be coming to you and you'll be getting it. So And then thereafter, I wanted to go for youth service. I wasn't sure of joining the Covenant Nation then, so I went for youth service, and during youth service, I practiced something I had then, and it worked. It worked. And so I knew it then that the Covenant Nation was where I should belong to. And so when I came back from youth service, I joined. And so fast forward, when we did our baby first child's dedication here, some of our relatives came. A relative asked me that, what kind of church is this? Are you sure about this church you're attending? Because I don't know what he experienced or what he saw. But I just asked him that, look, just look at me. Do you think that I'm growing? He said, well, it seems so, you're growing. So between that time and now, well, there's no doubt about the growth that has been happening. And I think the fruits are showing, and it's been a pleasure being at the Covenant Nation.
We had our first son and we weren't ready for another child, and then we had planned that 2021 May we were going to start trying for another child, and so we started May, and then towards the end of May I expected myself to be pregnant already, and I wasn't pregnant. So I went to the hospital and we did a scan, and the gynae then was saying, oh, you have classic symptoms of a particular condition. And it was really, we're medically inclined. So from the scan, we ourselves could see that this thing looked, and then we went back like, what's this? Like, this shouldn't be.
When I saw the transvaginal ultrasound scan result, it was too glaring that this person whose scan is like this can't conceive again. That's what actually it looked like. There were some symptoms. I don't want to mention the condition. They were classic, actually. But when the gynecologist was an Alaja, so immediately she pronounced the diagnosis to us. I just had that prophetic utterance coming out from my mouth. Like, my wife does not have this condition. It's not possible. And I'm coming back to show you our pregnancy test results. She looked at me. She smiled like, oh, you guys are just joking. Like, can't you see it's so glaring? You guys are not facing reality. Let's start taking the drugs you need to take to make sure that maybe she can actually conceive and all that. But immediately I released that word, we went back to our closet and we just kept declaring that word, that my wife is fertile, she's going to put to bed, she's going to conceive and all that. And when she took the pregnancy test some weeks after and it was positive, I couldn't wait to dash to the hospital to say, hey, the word works. This is classic, the word works here. And then she was surprised actually because the symptoms were clear. Everything was actually like adding up to that diagnosis. So when pastor talks in church about what the word says and what the word is saying, we have experienced it. There was what medical knowledge says. Thank God I wasn't practicing, so it really, really helped me because I could build faith because I wasn't going to look at all the medical jargons. And then he's a living testimony of that reality. And we thank God for that. So
that's fine. That's like child-wise. Like, we've grown in other areas. We've had big breakthroughs, big breaks in areas of our life.
We can't even begin to mention it. I think we'll just have to write the church officially on that. So many things that God has actually done for us. We know this is where we're supposed to be. The precision is too clear.
So when I joined the church 10 years ago, I was single, lived in a one-bedroom apartment. I just moved into Lagos, but now I'm married, have 2 children, doing well at work, and as the church has progressed, like I was saying, we have progressed with the church. To God be the glory.
Coming into Covenant Nation dramatically changed my life, changed the plans or the purposes I thought I had for my life. And so I remember one day Pastor Wale Ekunda, the campus pastor at Iganmu, made a call for if you're a particular age range, for youth expression and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't think I'm ready for this. Let me just focus on my focus, right? But he made it 3 times. It was the 3rd time that I said, okay, you know what, I'll just, let me just register. It doesn't hurt being a part of young people and praying together. And that singular act led me into the path of Triex, which was a major turnaround for me. All right, so the Triex community, of course, was birthed by Pastor Wale Ekunda. But the interesting thing is, we thought, Pastor Wale was going to be involved in the entire thing, but bro, Pastor is not involved in anything, right? So what we did was we started with a 40-day prayer chain. We prayed every day for 40 days. In fact, from the day, I remember working on the document, from the day, the first prayer meeting we had to the day that we got the
the idea of Triex came, the vision, the mission, everything, was exactly 40 days when I did the calculation, because I worked on the initial document about the purpose, vision, and our ethos and all of that, right? So after that, after we had our first service, Pastor Poju was like, yeah, you guys are running everything, and that's it, I'm signing out. I was like, oh, ow, like why, right? It has been extremely amazing to see that Christianity is not just about yourself. And getting into levels of maturity where I am not thinking about myself, just myself, is about I have a family, that's one. Number two, I have people that I need to lead, I need to disciple. It's extremely amazing. It's stretching, it's demanding, but then the joy comes when I hear people's testimony, not testimony of, oh, this happened to me because you said this, no, of I found this out in the Word of God myself. I prayed and God spoke to me. I won a soul for the Lord. Those kinds of testimonies, what really, really gives me joy. So it has been one way I've had to stretch spiritually. I have to stretch in my mind, in my leadership abilities, but it has been worth it. Another interesting thing is we have a lot of young people in Triex that are bringing out unusual levels of creativity and innovation in ministry for the gospel of Christ, in their workplace, in business, and even in school. So people say, oh, Pastor Mario, this, that in Triex, and I'm just laughing like, you don't know the amount of work that people put in Triex, like volunteers and members of teams, you know, to ensure that things run smoothly. And I see unusual levels of creativity, and it all goes down to the fact that it was birthed by the Spirit, and a lot of young people are eager, you know, to go on life with God, find their purpose, find their destiny in God. So young people doing amazing things for God, birthing a revival in the Covenant Nation is really what is happening in Triex.
This place is a unique place. Unique in the sense that it's a church that has been ordained to grow the youths. I'm in my 80s. Mommy is in mid-70s. Because we are in a faith-living church, our strength had increased a lot. We are more like youths. In fact, that's exactly what we have benefited from. Each time I tell Mommy, I say this is the right place to be.
What stands out in TCN Iganmu for me is the community. You know, you may have had a heavy week, had a rough week. The moment you step into church, from the usher at the door saying hello, to the people you are sitting beside, there's just something about the community that has the power to take the weight off you. And then if you now take a step further and join a department, heavenly is the community for me. Then the word, I keep saying is that anytime I'm going through something, it's almost as if Pastor Poju lives in my house, or Pastor Wale, right? I'll just come to Midweek service, and everything either pastors will be preaching about will have something to do with what's actually going on in my life. And for me, that's really profound, because it means that I get directions and instructions per second. So it's the community and the word.
You are asking me to put myself in trouble. And what stands out, you want me to get into trouble. But let me say something about it. And let me put it this way. When we started opening campuses, so then we therefore will have the older churches, and then we had the newer churches. And those newer churches, I wasn't going there physically to go and preach in those churches. So the question became, so what then will they be doing? I mean, pastor is not around. And I said, well, that's the real work of pastoring. You'll have to build communities, people will have to. So what then happened was that the nature of the newer churches were different from the older ones. In other words, like someone said, he said, if you go to one of those new churches, if you go in and you leave, by the second week, they will know you by name. You know, it was really, they were bonding. So that became a challenge for the older churches. And I must say that Iganmu, the transformation of Iganmu has been remarkable. I mean, it's the biggest center, but they have transformed with this Triex, with all the community group concepts to a place where you can't come into Iganmu without getting deeply integrated into the church. So it's been a real place of transformation, I think. And in this issue of internal cell structure, they probably will be the most advanced now.
I have two best friends right now, and I knew them since when I was like 3-4 years ago, and we are all product of TCN Iganmu. I feel like that community, I don't know, there's a way that TCN Iganmu just brings people together. Is like their love language, bringing people together.
What God told us is that we're a family of kings and priests, and here we see how kings are taught, how priesthood is held, and how kingship is established in the marketplace. So you can't fake it here as a Christian. You would know your place as a priest in terms of prayers, and you will know your place in terms of being street smart, being skilled on the market. Pastor is one of the few pastors I know in Nigeria and even globally that actually have some skill acquisition, reading books. You just not saying this is what the Bible says. You also having that street interaction to understand how to apply that scripture on the streets is very, very important. So that stands out for me.
Joining the protocol department, that's something. So it's one of the, or like every other unit in the church, it's serious work. So it's not just church work and you do it casually. No, it's serious work. The same level of professionalism. There's a high bar of excellence that permeates all departments in the church. So that same thing is there. So joining the protocol department, I saw the advert once. Those kind of adverts only come once. So just one Sunday, just put it, protocol opening, send an email, this. That was it. There was no other advert for protocol. So I sent in my application. I did a series of interviews. Yes, I did interviews. And then eventually, I can remember when I got the acceptance, I think it was Christmas of that year, about six years ago or something, when I got the message that I had been accepted. Felt like $1,000,000, like, whoa, I got into the department. And it's been really, really, really eye-opening to work in the protocol department, because there are things you learn in protocol department and even in working in the church workforce that you can apply in your secular workplace. So the rigor, the planning, and then the bar of execution, and then also the trainings that we come for. There are trainings that pastor organizes. Those trainings, you can literally take those notes and the lessons you learn there and apply it in your secular day, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job, and seamless fit.
The growth has been phenomenal because a lot of churches have been born out of Covenant Nation Iganmu, and it looks like it keeps birthing things, and then still we're growing. We're over 4,000 on a Sunday morning, right? And that's minus the people who go online. I'm saying physical people who show up in church. So you look at that and you ask yourself, so all the other churches, so where are they coming from? Because most of the people came out from here, even the Abuja church and all of that. I remember back then when people have to fly over and all of that. So the vision is actually to go to about 10,000, all right, at a certain period of time as a church. And I know we can do it because we have the structure on ground using the United Tribe, for instance, the Sunday school, for instance.
Working with Pastor Wale Kundayo as our campus pastor has been amazing. You can't actually join a prayer session that has Pastor Wale and you not pray, because there's a way his tongues and his prayer is so contagious. Once you join in, you just start praying too.
I just always thought, Pastor Wale pastor is afar off. That's before I knew him. There were some of my friends that actually knew him, but I didn't have any relationship with him then. Like, pastor up there, fine boy, swags, teas, and all of that. As I always started having conversation, I could see that he's someone that understands, like you can actually relate to him. And before you say one or two, he already knows what you want to talk about. Yes, he's a pastor, but even when it comes down to the fine details of things as a young person, he gets it immediately.
Shout out to Pastor Wale. Pastor Wale, you're amazing. They're pastors and they're pastors. You are a pastor's pastor. So shout out to Pastor Wale. Shout out to the HODs. I like how there's no air of pride or superiority that comes from any HOD. Everybody relate as though you are family. Shout out to the HOD. Thank you for building teams that actually impact people. Shout out to the content team. I love you guys so much.
One of the things that shocked me the most was when I got to Covenant Christian Center at the time, I saw pastor arranging chairs. He will remove his jacket, arrange chairs, on light, off light, and he wasn't trying to be humble. He wasn't trying to be, oh, everybody, can you see I'm a humble guy? No, he wasn't doing that. That's the kind of person he is. So he's granular when it comes to execution. Very granular. If he doesn't like something, you will see him. And you see if sometimes when he's preaching, if the light is not correct, he will tell you this light is not correct. There's something wrong about this thing. He's quite detailed when he's talking about the execution. What pastor does is that he galvanizes his people without you having to know that that's what he's doing.
Yes, congratulations. You have given birth in the years to a lot of churches. I'm sure about 10, 12 churches have come out of you, and you still are packed out on Sundays and growing stronger every single Sunday. The work God is doing in Iganmu is very impressive, and the volunteers are all on point. It's really a center of transformation, and we look forward to you growing to the point where you are accommodating, and I'm sure 10,000 people every single Sunday morning, and giving birth again to another 10 churches.
So TCN family, we love you. I love you. I love every one of you. And I'm praying that every one, 90 to 100%, if possible, associated with TCN Iganmu will practice the word, and there will be witnesses, not just in this town, all over the world. God bless you. Happy anniversary.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Happy 10th anniversary to TCN Iganmu.
Happy anniversary, Daniela. Happy anniversary, Favor. And happy anniversary, TCN Iganmu.
Happy birthday, happy anniversary, TCN Iganmu.
Ẹ kú ọdún, ẹ kú ìyèdún, ẹ̀mí á ṣe púpọ̀ ẹ̀.